When most people think of World War II firearms, they imagine rifles, machine guns, and tanks. But for countless British soldiers, airmen, commandos, and spies, survival often came down to a weapon small enough to fit in a holster. At the outbreak of war in 1939, Britain remained one of the few major powers that still placed enormous faith in the revolver. Reliable, rugged, and simple to operate, the revolver had served the British Empire for decades. Today, we're examining every major pistol and revolver used by British and Commonwealth forces during World War II. And we begin with the revolver that became Britain's official wartime sidearm. Standard Service Revolvers. Enfield No. II Revolver. The Enfield No. II was Britain's standard-issue handgun throughout most of World War II. Chambered for the .38-200 cartridge, it was lighter and easier to carry than the older .455 caliber revolvers that had served during the First World War. The revolver held 6 rounds and featured a break-open action that allowed all spent cartridges to be ejected simultaneously. Later wartime models, particularly the Mark I Star, eliminated the exposed hammer spur entirely. This created a double-action-only revolver designed for rapid use under combat conditions. For countless British soldiers, this was the handgun they trusted when everything else failed. But the Enfield wasn't the only revolver in British service. Webley Mk IV Revolver. The Webley Mk IV remained one of the most common sidearms carried throughout the war. Like the Enfield, it fired the .38-200 cartridge and utilized Webley's famous top-break design. Its reputation for reliability was legendary. When wartime demand exceeded Enfield production, Webley revolvers continued rolling off factory lines and into the hands of soldiers across the globe. Yet some veterans still preferred something much larger. Webley Mk VI Revolver. The massive Webley Mk VI officially belonged to an earlier generation. Introduced during the First World War, it fired the powerful .455 Webley cartridge and was renowned for its formidable stopping power. Although technically obsolete by 1939, thousands remained in service. Officers, colonial troops, and Commonwealth forces often retained these older revolvers because they trusted them completely. Some were even modified to fire .45 ACP ammunition using half-moon clips. Alongside these British-made revolvers came an important ally from across the Atlantic, Smith & Wesson Victory Model. As wartime production demand skyrocketed, Britain turned to the United States. Through Lend-Lease, hundreds of thousands of Smith & Wesson Victory models entered British service. These revolvers were chambered for the British .38-200 cartridge and closely resembled domestic service weapons. Reliable, durable, and readily available, they became one of the most important supplementary sidearms of the war. But American assistance didn't stop there. Colt New Service and Colt Official Police. Smaller numbers of Colt revolvers also found their way into British service. The large Colt New Service revolver was a veteran of the First World War and remained in use with guards, rear echelon personnel, and Commonwealth forces. Meanwhile, Colt Official Police revolvers were purchased during wartime shortages and helped fill gaps in handgun supply. By 1942, however, the future clearly belonged to semi-automatic pistols, and none would become more famous than the next weapon on our list.
Modern semi-automatic pistols. Browning High Power. The Browning High Power was arguably the finest military pistol available to British forces during World War II. Originally designed by John Browning and completed by Dieudonné Sive in Belgium, it featured an impressive 13-round magazine, nearly double the capacity of most contemporary handguns. After Belgium fell to Germany, production shifted to Canada. British commandos, paratroopers, Special Air Service troops, and Special Operations executive agents quickly adopted it. Its reliability, accuracy, and firepower made it one of the most sought-after sidearms of the entire war. Yet another American pistol also gained a strong reputation among British troops: Colt 1911A1. The Colt 1911A1 arrived through Lend-Lease in substantial numbers. Chambered in the powerful .45 ACP cartridge, it offered tremendous stopping power and exceptional battlefield durability. Airborne troops, commandos, and specialized personnel frequently carried the pistol. Many British soldiers considered it one of the toughest handguns ever made. But not every mission required power. Sometimes discretion mattered more. FN Model 1910. Compact, reliable, and easy to conceal, the FN Model 1910 became popular among intelligence officers, aircrew, and covert operatives. Its slim profile allowed it to be hidden beneath civilian clothing or carried discreetly during clandestine operations. For spies operating behind enemy lines, concealment often mattered more than magazine capacity. Other compact pistols served similar roles. Colt Pocket Hammerless. The Colt Pocket Hammerless actually used an internal hammer. Available both in .32 ACP and .380 ACP, it became a favorite among intelligence personnel and special operations executive agents. Its smooth profile reduced the chance of snagging when drawn quickly. For undercover work, it was nearly ideal. Astra 300. Purchased from Spain in significant numbers, the Astra 300 offered another compact and dependable option. It saw service with RAF personnel and other military specialists who needed a practical defensive sidearm. Although less famous than the Hightower or 1911, it quietly served throughout much of the conflict. Several other European pistols also found their way into British hands. Mauser 1914 and 1934. Small Mauser pocket pistols were frequently used by intelligence operatives and resistance networks supported by Britain. Their compact size and reliable operation made them useful tools for covert missions throughout occupied Europe. Meanwhile, some older British semi-automatics remained in service as well. Webley and Scott automatic pistols. The Webley and Scott self-loading pistols represented Britain's early attempt at a military semi-automatic handgun. Models chambered in .455, .38, and .32 calibers continued serving with naval personnel, aircrew, and officers. While largely overshadowed by newer designs, they remained useful throughout the early years of the war. And then there was perhaps the strangest handgun Britain ever fielded.
Welrod silenced pistol. The Welrod was unlike any other firearm in British service. Developed for the Special Operations Executive, it was specifically designed for assassination, sabotage, and clandestine warfare. The weapon used an integral suppressor and a manually operated bolt-action system. Its appearance was crude. Its magazine doubled as the grip, but its effectiveness was extraordinary. At close range, the Welrod was one of the quietest firearms ever deployed during the Second World War. For agents operating behind enemy lines, silence could mean survival, and few weapons embodied the secret war more completely than the Welrod. British handguns during World War II reflected a military caught between tradition and modernization. The dependable Enfield and Webley revolvers represented decades of imperial experience and battlefield reliability. The Browning High Power and Colt M1911A1 pointed toward the future of military sidearms. Meanwhile, compact pistols carried by spies and commandos fought a very different war in the shadows. Together, these revolvers and pistols served soldiers, airmen, commandos, resistance fighters, and intelligence agents across every theater of the conflict. Whether defending a bomber over Germany, storming a beach in Normandy, or conducting sabotage deep inside occupied Europe, these handguns often represented the final line of defense. Next time, we'll examine every British bomber aircraft used in World War II.